Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to another exclusive interview dedicated to the Intra-African Trade Fair 2025 hosted by Algeria. We are here today at the International Exhibition Center Safex, where this mega continental event is taking place. Today, I am happy to host with me Dr. Gainmore Zanamwe, Director of Trade Facilitation and Investment Promotion at the African Export-Import Bank. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, and we have been preparing for this big event, the Intra-African Trade Fair, and I'm happy that it is now here, it's happening, and we're excited to see so many countries come and exhibit.
Thank you, our pleasure. So, Dr. Zanamwe, let's start. How do you see Afreximbank's current overseeing of the Intra-African Trade Fair 2025 shaping discussions within the fair?
This edition has been fantastic. There were excellent discussions that were taking place over the past few days, but I want to start with the opening ceremony, where we had an impressive number of heads of states and their representatives discussing key and topical issues affecting intra-African trade and investment. But I would like to single out the speech that was delivered by your president, His Excellency Tebboune. He was spot on. He called on Africans to look for African solutions to African problems. And he was calling upon the continent to focus more on regional and economic integration. This is what we actually need. Because if you look at other continents, Europe, for example, they trade more with each other. Intra-European trade is more than 60%, and that is why Europe is also developed. If you look at Asia, it's the same. The level of intra-Asian trade is actually higher. And here, during the Iatf 2025, we've been focusing on some of these discussions that will try to identify the challenges that are affecting intra-African trade. There have been so many sessions, from the opening day ceremony now to the various plenary sessions where we're discussing things like the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, the EPC contract initiative. This is basically an important initiative that is focusing on ensuring that the African engineers, construction companies, and those that are in the procurement value chain, they actually focus on assisting the continent to develop the requisite infrastructure that we need to support the implementation of the AfCFTA. And there will be a lot of discussions that will also focus on the policy issues, because we need to integrate the continent, but we need rules to be harmonized. We need standards to be harmonized. We need to share trade and market information, which is the heart of what is actually being discussed throughout the sessions. And you probably know that the theme of this IATF is basically the gateway to new opportunities. Yeah. Yes, there are a lot of opportunities in Africa. And this is why, in addition to the topics that are being discussed in various sessions, plenary, side events, we are also focusing on deals. Maybe we'll talk about this much later.
You were mentioning now the tools used by the African Bank, that the African Bank is actively in, such as PAPS, MANSA, and the Single Bond Guarantee Scheme. So how are these mechanisms changing the way businesses trade across the continent?
What we did at Afreximbank was to first sit down and try to understand why intra-African trade is very low, at around 15 to 18%. Yes. And of course, one of the key issues we discovered was the lack of access to trade and market information that we are addressing through platforms like the Intra-African Trade Fair. But we also realized that payment and settlement was one of the big challenges that is actually inhibiting intra-African trade. There is intra-African trade that should be taking place, but it's not happening. Why? Because people have to wait for the US dollar. They need to look for Forex. And if there is no Forex, they are not able to import. So at Afreximbank, we actually said, this is not acceptable. And I go back to what your president said, that we need African solutions to African problems. This is what exactly Afreximbank did. We went back all the way to 1963, and we realized that at the first meeting of the OAU, our founding fathers had already mandated us to establish a payment and settlement clearing agency, which we then used as a basis to develop the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, which is going to facilitate payment in African currencies. We've got more than 42 currencies that are not convertible, so you cannot really do trade when you have that situation. So we decided to establish the PAPS, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, to ensure that Algeria can actually trade with South Africa in your dinar and in South African rands. And this is actually going to help us to save more than 5 billion in transaction costs that we are losing by first sending money outside the continent and then it comes back. So the transaction costs are huge. But also, the PAPS will facilitate the speed of transactions. It will be done in real time. But it's not only the speed that we are selling. We've also introduced the African marketplace where business entities can actually do currency swaps and ensure that they facilitate the repatriation of their money that may be logged in one country. So PAPS is actually a game changer, and we believe that this is actually going to facilitate a lot of trade that was not happening. And if I can also talk about Mansa, this is basically our KYC, know your customer, due diligence platform, which will enable us to know the real business people that we are dealing with on the continent. One of the major reasons why we are not trading with each other, aside from the lack of market and the trade information that I talked about, is that there's a trust issue. As an Algerian, probably you may not find it very easy to trust somebody from Zambia or Nigeria that you don't know, and you don't know if you do business, you export your dates or olive oil to those people in Zambia or Nigeria, you don't know whether you'll be paid. So we have actually established the MANSA to help with KYC, and it will also ensure that even some of the smaller players, the SMEs, who have been struggling to have access to finance, will be able to use this platform to actually establish the trust that is needed for business people to interact with each other. And we didn't just stop there at these two digital platforms, the PAPS and MANSA. We had to consult the business people to try and understand how, when they've now done trade deals, how do they get their goods to move throughout the continent? We've heard so many stories about the transportation challenges, whereby the goods will probably have to go also outside the continent and then come back to the continent. And sometimes some of the business people that we talked to were telling us that it's much easier to import from China than to probably, you are here in Algeria, to import from Egypt or Tunisia because of the transportation and logistics issues. And we actually discovered that one of the challenges that was actually contributing to these high transportation costs was the way in which trucks are being stopped at each and every border post to post a transit bond or a transit guarantee. I'll give you a very practical example. Picture a situation whereby goods need to move, let's say, from Lagos all the way to Abidjan. They have to stop at Benin, Togo, Ghana, all these borders. They will have to actually post a bond. that is inefficient. So what we've done at Afreximbank, we've established what we call the African Transit Bond Scheme, which ensures that with a single transit bond that is technology enabled, you can be able to get a truck move from Lagos to Abidjan without paying all the various bonds. It will be just one transit bond.
Yes.
And you can do it also all the way from Cape Town to Cairo with a single transit bond. That will enable the continent to save about 300 million US dollars per year. This is very conservative.
Yes.
The figure could go up to even 1 billion if we implement the transit scheme. Yeah. And what we've actually done is we've now partnered with Zepre, a Comesa reinsurance entity, to actually partner with them to issue these transit bonds and facilitate the movement of goods under the AFCFTA. We gave them a 300 million facility, which is currently being disbursed. So we don't just talk at Afreximbank, we execute and find practical solutions to decongest the borders, to get trucks moving, and that will actually reduce the turnaround time and improve the way in which you do business on the continent.
Yes. Let's go back to the fair. So the IATF 2025 has projected to generate around 44 billion US dollars in trade. So from where we stand in here today, it's the 5th day so far. How close are we to reach these values or this target?
Thank you very much. I think we are really excited about the developments that is taking place on the deal signing. There have been a lot of deals that have been signed thus far, and we believe that we are on course to meeting our target of $44 billion. And just to give you a sense, we have done this in the past. We have delivered. The first edition, we did 32 billion. The second edition in 2021 in South Africa, we did 42 billion. We went back to Egypt in 2023, we did 43.8 billion. So we are confident, based on what I'm seeing thus far, that we'll be able to meet this target, and some of the deals will actually benefit Algeria. I've actually noted some big deals that are taking place in the construction sector and other sectors that will also benefit Algeria.
So can we say that the 4th edition of the IATF 2025 contributed to a broader goal of a unified African market under the AFCFTA?
The main reason why we are doing IATF is that we realize that it's a very good platform. We actually call it the marketplace for the AFCFTA. Now that we have got 49 countries that have ratified the AFCFTA, they are already implementing the agreement. The trade fair IATF 2025 has actually come at the right time, whereby we are now giving practical meaning to what it means to actually trade under the AFCFTA. The deals that we are actually talking about are going to contribute towards the implementation of the AFCFTA. You'll have a buyer and a seller from one African country, and they will actually conclude the deals, and then they will trade under the rules that are provided by the AFCFTA framework. So we are really confident that the AFCFTA is now being given the steam by the trade fair, and this is now dealing with all the implementation issues, and I'm really happy, and I'm actually very optimistic that the AFCFTA will start delivering the benefits to the business people, the big entities, and as well as the smallholder farmers and SMEs.
Yes. And finally, one last question. What message would you leave for the African entrepreneurs and investors following the IATF 2025?
What we always say is that when you come to the trade fair, you do the deals, you network, you connect. It does not end here. I've seen a lot of people network and connect. After the IATF, we need now to go and implement, execute those deals. My message to the investors, those that have struck the deals here at IATF, is that you need now to work with us as Afreximbank we have got various tools that can help you to go and execute and implement your investment deals in the various African countries, including here in Algeria. We believe that this Iatf will also contribute to ensuring that Algeria goes more out to other African countries, and it will also open up a little bit more to the imports that are coming from other African countries. We also want to work with all the key entrepreneurs, including SMEs, people in the creative industry, people in the automotive sector, to ensure that all the deals that are concluded here at the trade fair are actually followed through and implemented. We actually track them. We've got a tracker to ensure that each and every single deal that is signed is actually supported by not only Afreximbank, but other financial partners that we work with, by the AFCFTA Secretariat, by ensuring that there's a framework that will ensure that the non-tariff barriers are removed. So we don't want this to just become a talk show, but we want to ensure that people see the real benefits from participating in the trade fair.
Outcomes and the results, indeed.
Yes.
Yes, Dr. Gainmore Zanamwe, you are Director of Trade Facilitation and Investment Promotion at the African Export-Import Bank. Thank you so much for all your insights today. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of today's interview of the Intra-African Trade Fair 2025. Expect us for more exclusive interviews with investors, entrepreneurs, and delegates from the fair. This is the end. We meet for the next time. Goodbye.